What is going on YouTube? It is your boy MrBaboon back with a reaction video. We are reacting to Catherine the Great. And this is episode 4. And I will have the link for the video and link for the channel down below in the description. If you guys want to watch it, you guys can. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications if you guys are enjoying. So, let's see. I don't really think I have anything else to add to that. So I think what we're going to do is just go ahead and get into the reaction. Get a drink. And then get into it. First things first, some light. Why did that come up? I don't know. Just gonna full screen that.
In Europe settled and the church finally under her control, Catherine could at last focus on her great project, the law. In her spare time, while not getting distracted by things like getting an ex-lover elected the puppet king of Poland or corresponding with Voltaire, Catherine focused on writing the Nakaz, a massive set of guidelines for how to rewrite the laws of the land. These weren't laws, mind you, but rather guidelines on how to make laws, because Catherine had a novel idea. She would bring together representatives of her people and ask them what problems they faced that needed fixing before she actually went about making new laws.
Sure.
And so she assembled representatives from every free class, region, and religion in her empire to come together and discuss what laws needed to be made. And in some ways, this was incredibly inclusive. She had representatives who were Cossacks, representatives who were Muslims, even representatives who were Buddhists. But there was one group that was left out. That whole free part in free class meant that there would be no serfs. After all, the serfs' owners could look after their interests, right? But no serfs meant that 9/10 of the empire went unrepresented. And as for the representatives of the 1/10 who did show up for her great assembly on laws, they were utterly unprepared for it. There really hadn't been much involvement in government in Russia up to this point, and truth be told, many of the people involved held at least some suspicion that this was a trick or some sort of loyalty test. For the first of many meetings, they debated what honorific to award Catherine. If you are wondering, the Great just narrowly beat out All-Wise Mother of the Fatherland. Catherine found this infuriating. Did they not understand that she had called them here to help her figure out what laws to make, not to just give her titles? Well, no. In fact, a fair number of them couldn't even read the guidelines she gave them, and even fewer really understood the heavy Enlightenment philosophy which formed the basis of the Nakaz, which meant that getting anything useful from them was like pulling teeth. The merchants wanted the rights of nobles. The nobles wanted to be able to engage in commerce as merchants. And the peasants mostly gave very specific complaints about how that jerk Boris from the next village over keeps letting his cows trample my fence. Can we make a law about that? Catherine was an autocrat at heart. She believed in absolutism, but she wanted data. She felt that an autocrat should rule with knowledge and understanding, but knowledge and understanding were in short supply in these meetings. Finally, after much frustration, the whole affair was called off. Foreign events had become more pressing. Remember when I mentioned that Catherine had put a puppet on the Polish throne? Well, she'd been having that puppet do things that were more and more clearly against the best interest of the Poles. The Polish people finally rebelled, and the Russian army was sent in to put the rebellion down. But in doing so, a Russian regiment chased fleeing Polish insurgents into Ottoman territory. The French had been leaning on the Ottomans to get into the Polish conflict for some time, and this seemed like just the excuse. So the Ottomans locked up the Russian ambassador and went to war. This turned out to be a poor decision on the Ottomans' part. Once seen as near equals, the Russians belied expectations and delivered the Ottomans a series of crushing defeats. On land, the Russian forces, led in small part by one Grigory Potemkin, seemed invincible. And at sea, where the Turks thought themselves to be unopposed because the Russians had no port on the Black Sea, the Russians conceived of a bold plan to take the Baltic fleet, sail it all the way around Europe, and surprise the Ottoman fleet from the rear. The plan worked. The Ottoman navy suffered massive losses at little cost to the Russians. But the Russians didn't get quite as much from the war as might first have been supposed, partly because of pressure from other foreign entities who didn't want to upset the balance of power too greatly. and partly because something curious was happening back home in the Urals. But first we must talk of the treaty that ended the war, the Treaty of Kachuk-Kainarza. It gave the Russians a fair swath of territory, but most importantly, it gave Russia ports on the Black Sea, which had been one of their strategic goals for a very long time. It also provided war reparations, which helped with the ongoing problem of Russia being kinda broke. Lastly, it made Russia the protector of Orthodox Christians living in the Ottoman Empire, something that will absolutely come up if we ever cover the Crimean War. Alright, so, with the war against the Ottomans thus concluded, Catherine could turn to another niggling issue, the fact that half of her country was up in arms. At first it seemed like a small revolt, a little nothing out in the boonies, but then when Catherine sent a force to pacify it, that force was defeated. So she sent another force out to pacify it, and the commander lost his head, literally. This was getting to be a problem. In fact, it was a huge problem, one that would require the help of some of those troops that had been tied up fighting the Ottomans to solve. Because what had started out as a small group of discontented Cossacks had grown into the largest peasant rebellion Russia had ever seen. The horrible conditions of serfdom, the increase in tax collectors and government officials messing with Cossack affairs, and discontent of the old believers with the Orthodox hierarchy meant that these groups had become dry tinder just waiting for a lit match. And a man named Pugachev had fanned that discontent into a firestorm. Pugachev claimed that he was Peter III, that he had escaped the attempt on his life, and that his wife and the evil nobles had deposed him because he was about to sign into law a decree freeing all the serfs. He was also offering freedom of religion and a tax-free return to the traditional way of life for the Cossacks. To a lot of people, that sounded like a pretty good deal, and for a year, they held sway over vast parts of Russia, often dealing savagely with any nobles unlucky enough to cross their path. But at last, as the troops began to pour back from Ottoman lands, Catherine sent out an overwhelming force to snuff out the rebellion. But even as this fire was being put out, a much worse specter flared up. Smallpox. Smallpox was still the bane of Europe. No one was safe from it, noble or commoner, king or priest. It had just burnt through the Austrian royal family, destroying their line of succession. And here Catherine was, never having contracted it. Perhaps worse still, here her son was, with whispers all around court of the uncertainty of his ever ascending the throne, because he had not yet suffered and survived the disease. Catherine herself said that she lived in fear of the disease every day. Too many people she had known had been claimed by it. So at last, student of the Enlightenment that she was, she took a bold step. She summoned a doctor from Britain to inoculate her. This science was fairly new at the time, and though the doctor she brought in was one of the experts in the field, everyone thought her mad. Many were convinced that she would die. But she lived. After a few small pustules and some aches, she was fit and forever inured against the disease. Soon she had her son inoculated too. But she didn't just do this for herself. She knew that her people were a wary, suspicious people, especially when it came to disease. She hoped that, by her example, she could convince others to get inoculated too. And it worked. Soon, much of the court followed her example. In fact, she had inoculation stations set up in most of the provinces, and a large number of Russians benefited from this, one of the true wonders of modern medicine. There would be other plagues during her tenure as Empress, some unthinkably terrible, but this one great lingering fear, this one tragedy that once fell on almost every house, this she was able to do something about. By the end of her reign, nearly 2 million Russians would be inoculated. But with the home front quiet, and her efforts on medicine and childcare taking root, it was time again to look beyond the borders of Russia, or perhaps more accurately, to the borders of Russia, and how they might be expanded. Join us next time for Changing Alliances, Sprawling Wars, and the Partition of Poland.
Oh shit, looks like there's gonna be a lot that's about to happen. Oh shit, okay. We're gonna go ahead and get these last 2 episodes recorded and everything, and we're gonna get these done. Catherine the Great is definitely interesting. She definitely is interesting, I would say. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are down below in the comments. I'll see you guys in the next one. You guys stay safe. Positivity is key. Motivation is key. Happiness is key. I'll see you guys in the next one. You guys watch out for each other. All that good stuff. You know what I will do? We're gonna take just a little dab. We're gonna take a little dab. So let me know if you guys want to see like some smoking clips. Like, you know how like those people on Instagram that will like take a 20-30 second video of them hitting a dab or taking a bong rip or something. Let me know if you guys want to see that. Let me know if you guys want to see that, because then I can get a couple more, like I can get a dedicated rig for dabs, and then my bong right there will be dedicated for the flower. And you know what I mean? And then eventually I could get like an e-rig, you know what I mean? And then when I eventually get an e-rig and everything, we could do like, cause I don't know. I'm also just I'm rambling too, so there's that. I don't know. Let me know if you guys want to see that on Instagram. Then I can link the Instagram and everything, and then I can get started on that relatively soon. Cause I mean, I don't know if I could post those shorts. I don't know if I could post those on YouTube for YouTube shorts of me smoking. I'm not sure. I gotta check into that. Let me know down below in the comments if anyone knows. I will see you guys in the next one. Positivity is key. Motivation is key. Happiness is key. You gotta stay safe. Watch out for each other. All that good stuff. I'll see you guys in the next one.